Greetings and welcome to this week's Just Talk. Oh yes, we're back with more channel news and analytics, and this week we're going to play around a little bit with the format and see what we can do, because it is important to continue to innovate and improve. And in fact, video quality and video quantity are going to be two subjects we're going to talk about a little bit more this week. But let's kick off with a 5-minute roundup of the videos this week, starting on Monday with Cities Skylines, which pulled in about 60 views over the course of the week, which seems to be pretty standard for Cities Skylines episodes. We continued building out the kind of downtown area and the City of the Dead. Lots of good stuff. I'm still enjoying making this series. It's quite easy content to make, which is a definite plus point in its favor. There probably isn't a huge amount of mileage left in it. Likes did drop off this week. It's been sort of steadily falling off, so we're probably going to wrap this game up at some point in the relatively near future, but a lot will depend. A lot will depend if we can find new and interesting things to do, or whether we decide to kind of, set a goal, set a milestone, complete it, and then move on to something else. And we can always come back and look at the game again in the future. But there you go, that was Monday. And on to Tuesday, which was something a little bit different, because a game popped up on Steam. I often check the new on Steam lists, and it looked kind of interesting. It was only £4. It was called Rake. And so I kind of dropped everything and did an episode of that, which hopefully didn't upset or annoy any of the regular viewers too much. I know we've got a lot of shows on the channel. I know people are probably waiting for things like KSP and more Medieval Engineers and so on and so forth. But this was an opportunity. The game had just come out on Steam. There was no views. There was no videos on YouTube at the time. Yeah, it was a small game. As far as I'd heard no hype about it, but it was only £4. So I took a punt because I thought, we need to start moving this channel forward and growing it steadily through Twitter publicity, and occasionally picking up views off of forum posts and things like that is good. I mean, it's great. In fact, we've come a hell of a long way really quickly, and I'm really pleased, and we've got some really great engagement, which as well I think is partly because of that method of publicity and the fact that I try and engage with everybody on a personal level, and we get great comments, and some of you guys have really got involved with the community, which is absolutely fantastic. And I really hope that occasional videos like this, which are perhaps not to your taste but which garner a lot of attention off of YouTube, are not going to change that, because I see this as kind of the next step. It's working out where we can get those breakthrough videos, where we can get page one rankings on search results, where we can get a lot of engagement, and that will then breed more views and more attention for the channel, which will then drive more and more traffic to it. So we need to get that kind of that dynamo going, and Rake is a classic example of a game which has done that. Like I said, fourth most successful video ever on the channel, and we're going to look at those numbers in quite a bit more detail, and we're going to look at Rake in particular during the analytics, because I think it's quite interesting. But this is just a video recap. So that was my Tuesday out of the blue video. And that brings us on to Weird Wednesday, the ever-popular, more or less, Weird Wednesday. And this week, it was Goat Simulator, which I absolutely had a ball on. And a massive thank you to Bone Hero once again for gifting me this game on Steam. Absolutely fantastic. I had a really good time making this video. Now, of course, it's been around for a long time, Goat Simulator, but, the video did reasonably well nonetheless. I think about 60-odd views, 9 likes, something like that. I mean, I quite liked Mark Kiley's comment on this video. He said he hadn't particularly liked the game, or indeed other people's YouTube videos of it, but that he did like mine, which is awesome to hear. I'm glad the crazy shenanigans of Gordon, Queen of the Goats, and of course defeater of the nefarious Barrel of Doom was to your liking. Of course, it's not going to be everybody's cup of tea, and, not every video can be, but like I said, I had a lot of fun making it, and I can see myself coming back to this game for easy content when I'm not feeling like I've got the energy or the time to put into perhaps a more complicated video to make. This, like I say, everything flows so nicely, and there's definitely more content in Goat Simulator, so there will probably be more at some point in the future. I wasn't able to release a video on Thursday because of time pressures and other things. I'll talk about that later, but for now, we'll move straight on to Retro Friday and the wonderful Viking world of myth and legend that is Rune, as Ragnar continued his quest, finally chasing down Konrak the Betrayer and engaging in what can only be described as an epic battle, with surprising consequences, but I don't want to ruin that in case you've not seen it. Suffice it to say that we are coming to the end of Ragnar's mighty quest, and soon we will need to replace the series with something else. And the question is, what do we replace it with? I'd quite like to continue doing Retro Friday. I know Retro Friday's got a lot of fans out there, so we could maybe look at another retro game. I was thinking possibly Morrowind or Oblivion. Fallout 3 was also mentioned. Maybe even continuing the character of Ragnar into those games. So if you've got any comments on that, please do let me know. I know Oblivion and Fallout 3, Oblivion's like 9 years old. Fallout 3 is less than that, so maybe a bit of a stretch calling it retro. Or, of course, we could drop Retro Fridays altogether and we could do something else. That has been something that I've discussed doing in the past, or, giving the time over to other series. So, any thoughts, suggestions, or comments are all greatly appreciated and will directly inform what we do going forward. Fantastic. Right, there was no video again on Saturday. Sorry about that, but that means that we have completed the 5-minute, more or less, roundup of the week. Next up, it's Subject of the Week. Okay, so this week's subject of the week is editing. To edit or not to edit? That is the question, and it is a very good question, and it is quite a multifaceted question, so I'm going to talk about it a little bit. There's going to be no specific answers, I'm afraid, because this is really just me charting my own journey, my own process of discovery on this. And editing is something I started doing relatively early in the channel's history. Originally, I was doing the Banner Saga Let's Plays. They're still available on the channel if you want to go and check them out. They're not very good. They're unedited, 20-minute segments of me playing a game. I started editing towards the end and they started getting better as a result, but it really convinced me that if you want to add value, you have to do more than just commentate. Editing allows you to add value, and editing is a whole subject in and of itself. It's adding like post effects, it's adding subtitles or other things on the screen. Obviously it's cutting out boring bits, and that's something that when I went into making my Stranded Deep videos that I started doing more and more of, and it became almost like a hallmark of the channel, that doing edited Let's Plays, and quite heavily edited Let's Plays. In Stranded Deep, there were whole chunks of the game that were taken out. Me sailing from one island to another, very boring to watch. You know what? There are YouTubers who probably could have filled that time with interesting commentary. I could probably have filled that time with interesting commentary if I tried hard enough. But I think it made for better content taking it out. And so kind of, going forward, I started doing more and more editing. And that's actually gotten to a point where it's becoming a bit of an issue. I do so much editing, I spend so much time on editing, that actually, it reduces the amount of content that I can potentially produce in a week, because I only have so much time to work on the channel. If all of that time is taken up editing, videos don't come out. And this week is a classic example. 2 days, no videos, not because I had no time, but because the time I had was not enough to do the amount of editing that I wanted to do to make those videos publishable, to make them meet the standard that I had set for myself. So it's a double-edged sword, editing. You've got to be very careful. You can wind up backing yourself into a corner where you spend so much time producing your content that you don't then get the content out there. And there is definitely a point of diminishing returns, and also there is a question of, should you be trying to produce something of that higher quality? Look at your viewership. Look at the amount that the thing actually gets for you, and what are your reasons for producing this content in the first place. If it's a piece of art, fine. Like if you're producing a piece of machinima, if it's a part of a student project or something, fine. You can justify the extra time. If this is something you're doing every day to build up a channel, and really the purpose of doing this is to build up the channel, is it actually time well spent? Or would you get almost the same effect from half the amount of time? That's the question I'm asking myself at the moment. Is it worth spending so much time in the editing room, or is the extra push the channel gets from it not enough to justify it? And it's a very tricky question. And games like Kerbal Space Program require a lot of time to make. They require a lot of time in the editing room. There's a lot of post-commentary going into Kerbal Space Program. It's a brilliant game. I love it. I love my Juno 100-bit series, and I would love to do more of it. And, there is an episode coming. It's been coming for a long time. I've been getting more and more kind of like ridiculous with my own expectations for what that episode is going to contain. And at some point I need to kind of decide that I need to be realistic about this, that it's not a work of art, it's not something that's going to stand the test of time and that people are going to watch for years to come. It's going to be something that'll be up on the channel, get 100 views, maybe a couple of hundred if I get lucky, and then it'll disappear. So like I say, it is a balancing act. As a general rule, I would say, in the question to edit or not to edit, absolutely edit. Every video should be run through the editing package at least one time, and you should add in little effects here and there, and you should cut out the boring bits. That's fine. But on the flip side, don't get carried away. accept that there is going to be a point of diminishing returns, and generally as well, make sure that it's still fun. At the end of the day, the reason we're doing this is because it's supposed to be fun. If you want to spend a month working on a single video because that's what's fun for you, absolutely go ahead and do it. If you want to try and build up a YouTube channel, and part of the fun is not so much each individual episode, but watching the channel itself grow and watching the community grow, then accept that, spend more time away marketing, publicizing the channel, and spend less time on the editing, and I don't think you will have a massively less good product as a result, as long as you have that, at least that first pass through the editing package. And there's quite a lot. Chalky Chalkson has made an interesting post on the Mana Blast, which is my one of the Medieval Engineers survival building episodes, which you can go back and have a look at. There is lots of things probably around this in terms of technique and ways that you can mitigate the need to edit too heavily, and things that are worth editing and things that aren't worth editing. And that's all a lot to talk about, and I'm not going to talk about it today. Maybe I'll talk about this subject a bit more in the future. But generally speaking, editing is good. But too much editing, certainly editing that comes at the expense of content creation, is perhaps something that you need to avoid. Having said all that, I have spent absolutely ages making and editing this video this week. And am I going to do this every week? I don't know, but it was an interesting experiment anyway. Right, now let's go and take a little look at the analytics. So here we go, the analytics. We'll do a quick rundown. Good subscriber numbers again this week. Look, 1,711 subscribers. So we've gained over 100 again from last week. I think it was about 1,580 last week, something like that. It's basically 100 and 120, 130, something like that subscribers we've gained this week. In fact, look, perhaps not exactly that, because the rest of the analytics are a little bit out of date. But let's go and take a look at them. Analytics. And what we're actually going to do, first of all, before I do this, look, green arrows, the green arrows are back. Thank you, Rake. You have given the channel an enormous boost. The green arrows are back, but let's just take this to the last 7 days, because I think these weekly ones will probably be easier for people to see what's going on if we limit it to the last 7 days, and then we can compare it for this 7 days to the previous 7 days. And see what's going on. So this week, views, 1,686 views. Obviously, there's been a couple of big peaks here. We'll take a look at that in a minute. Likewise for minutes watched. Subscribers, interestingly, is not quite such... is it there? It's actually down on last week. We've only gained 126 subscribers in the last week. We obviously gained more than that in the last period, although it wouldn't have been a lot more than that. But it'll be interesting to have a look at this in just a minute a bit more. Female to male gender ratio, 10% to 90%. I think that's the same as the previous one, but that is actually just for the last week. So I think that's a pretty good figure. It'd be nice to see this figure growing just a little bit. Traffic sources, YouTube search, 44%. Now this is obviously pretty much all Rake. In fact, we can take a look at it. Let's look at it now. So YouTube search. Look, Rake multiplayer. Interestingly, multiplayer was not anything that I showed. But Rake gameplay, Let's Play Rake, the Rake multiplayer gameplay, Rake multiplayer. Okay, so lots of multiplayer. Maybe I should do a Rake multiplayer. Mick, do you want to do a bit of multiplayer Rake? Oh, you probably don't have it. Maybe I can find a YouTuber or somebody who wants to do a bit of multiplayer Rake with me, and we'll do a multiplayer Rake video. That could be fun. Medieval Engineers still in there, and a few other bits and pieces. But look at that, 737 views from search results in the past week, and 3,886 minutes watched, which is pretty significant. If we just take a look at the views then, and of course overlay the minutes watched, then here, look, you can see this was actually when I released the Rake video, only a small bump on the day. I released it fairly late in the day. But then the next day, look at that, 1 day, 17 hours of watch time, 429 views, a massive surge. Interestingly, a big drop the next day, and I did notice we did reasonably well on the search results on day one in terms of our page ranking for those search terms that you saw. And then we dropped off quite a bit on the second day. We sort of fell down to the second page. Interestingly, we then resurged and we got back on the first page. Now, I don't know exactly what caused that. I think I always ranked fairly well on Let's Play. Terms like Rake Let's Play, interestingly, don't know why. So maybe that kind of carried me through, and then as the episode started to pick up more and more views and more likes, and more minutes watched, it kind of resurged, and it's continued to do well the rest of the week. And we don't have the rest of the week stats yet, but I mean, basically, it's arguably, I think yesterday it may have done even better than it did on whatever this is, the 17th. Sorry. So yeah, there you go. It's interesting, but look, as you can see, 851 views. It's on more than that now if you take into account the last couple of days. Behind that, Mana Blast, Wizard in the Woods, the latest Wizard in the Woods Medieval Engineers episode, 81, so like 10% of the views, which is pretty interesting. This is the power of being on page 1 of the search results for a game, for a search term, and we're going to need more of this, I think, if we want to see real substantial growth in the channel. Interestingly, look, if we actually look at it, then okay, most of them come from the United States. We had a few from Thailand, United Kingdom, Russia, Germany, and a few others. And subscription status, we had 807 not subscribed, 44 subscribed views. So again, obviously the vast majority from non-subscribers. And something else that I thought was quite interesting that we'll just look at quickly is annotations. So this is the click-through rates. And this is actually for Rake. Look, here we go. This is actually for Rake. So this is my to subscribe, and this is the playlist. Oh, I hadn't drilled down this deeper before. 2 people, only 2. So I say it's important to get these kind of breakthrough videos, and I absolutely stand by that. That kind of exposure, those kind of view counts really helps to increase the overall presence of the channel. Only 2 people subscribed from the subscription link embedded at the end of the video. So how many others went on to subscribe is obviously very difficult to say. 7 people went on to watch the playlist that was advertised at the end, which I think was Medieval Engineers, possibly, from memory. And 1 person clicked through to the Patreon site. I don't think I actually picked up a new patron, but I will double check that later. You never know. You never know. Good. So there you go. Pretty interesting stuff, I think. Subscribers. We've had this kind of we're still stuck on this. How do I get rid of it? There we go. It's gone. Although actually, look, what was that? Subscribers gained. Interestingly, this has me gaining 6, 7, 8 subscribers from Rake. So maybe including people subscribing whilst viewing the thing, it was 8. So that's not terrible. You know, that's not bad. 8 subscribers off of a single video. That's probably a lot more than any other video that I've released. So yeah, there you go. Pretty interesting. Pretty interesting. We had a little bit of a lull of subscribers here, but otherwise it's been pretty good. The publicity machine has been operating all week. Likes and dislikes. Again, pretty interesting. Rake, 22 likes. I mean, it's one of the most liked videos on the channel. In fact, if we look at views for a second here, and we just make this lifetime, then as you can see, Rake is in 4th position. Look, 1, 2, 3, 4, sorry, 5th position with 851 views. Now, actually, if we look at the video manager, you can see it's got 1,176 views, which I think puts it in 4th place. And it's certainly threatening for 3rd place. In fact, look, what is it? It could easily take 3rd place. In fact, it only needs 1 more view, and it ties for 3rd. And it's not a million miles away from Medieval Engineers, The Impossible Tower. It could easily take that as well. So, I mean, really, it's done incredibly well. But yeah, there you go. That was the analytics this week. Have I missed anything? Is there anything anybody wants me to see or go into more detail? Does anybody have any questions? I will now take a look at the comments. Mick, lol, maybe Wiz. I could arrange that. I'm not sure what you're replying to. Me having time, the time, or possibly Rake. Bone Hero, well, Rake multiplayer sure seems like a good video to do. It does look like it could potentially. I mean, the other thing is you've got to catch these waves whilst they're breaking. It may be that it's too late for the Rake surge now. That, you know, like coming in late on the Rake, even Rake multiplayer is going to mean is not going to mean much because it wasn't a very big game. And in all honesty, it's not a brilliant game. It's not bad for £4, I have to say. And it was fun and it made a good video and it obviously did well for the channel. But it's all about catching these things at the right time. Arc is a wave that I totally missed, and I should have caught, because if I caught Arc at the very beginning, then it would have provided a surge. Sure, other big YouTubers would have come along and kind of eclipsed me, but if you can catch it at the right time, a bit like with Stranded Deep, I had some good results off of Stranded Deep, and I still get fairly good results off of Medieval Engineers. So that is definitely something to bear in mind. Making money off of YouTube. Yeah, making money off of YouTube. Should we have a look? Let's have a look. Actually, this is another interesting thing, because Rake is right up here. Look, we're still on lifetime. So this is the lifetime best video in terms of ad revenues that I've generated. My update news video has actually earned me £1. £1.09. Medieval Engineers 80p, 40p. Just Talk and only 34p for the new Wizarding engine. Must have done particularly well. Another Medieval Engineers video, 32. At some point, I'll have to add up what all the Medieval Engineers videos have earned me, but this is like 32 pence. So a bit of Rune there, 28 pence. Rake, 28 pence. So tied with Rune, and shot right up to amongst the top earners that I've ever had. You don't make a lot. I've made £13.30 total off of YouTube since starting advertising revenues with them, which is not that much. I actually wondered whether the video I did for Weird Wednesday last week, Polarity, only cost me 14 pence, and I was like, oh, will this be the first game ever to actually pay for itself through the advertising revenue on YouTube? As it turns out, the answer to that is no, at least not yet. Look, 14 pence is down here. Total estimated earnings 5 pence. So it's not too far off. Like another 10 pence, and it will be in profit. It'll be an in profit game, which I think is very, very encouraging, or not, possibly, as the case may be. Yeah, it could be too late for Ark. Ark was very popular, and I think probably is still very popular, but there's a lot of very established Ark videos out there now. So I'm not saying I'm not going to do an Ark video, because I think it might make good content just for the channel and for the subscribers, but it wouldn't be being done with the sort of the hope that this will be a breakthrough video. And I think I need to start thinking in those terms. It's like there's regular content and then there's breakthrough content, and trying to put in regular breakthrough content that'll actually go out with like the normal subscriber base that the channel currently attracts, and go out with my normal publicity system, and actually bring new eyes and new things onto the channel. I think that's quite important, and that's something that I need to do more of.